When I was 19 years old, I found myself in therapy. Like I took myself there in secret. I didn't tell anyone. And when I had the same therapist on and off for 25 years. And 10 years ago, when I reached out to her and I let her know, like, I'm starting the coaching side of the business, she said to me, I just need to be transparent with you. I never thought that you would make it. And I hope you're not upset. And I said, no, I'm not upset at all. It speaks to the resilience of us as humans. So at the age of 19, she felt there was no hope. However, I have been able to, raise my family. I'm one of the top women owned businesses where we live. I've overcome, a lot of adversity. I started a coaching business. So I've done the work and I've overcome adversity where those adversities may have taken someone else out. I mean, again, she thought I wouldn't make it, but here I am.
Join me, Jeremy Swick, on Into the Unknown, a podcast that delves into the personal journeys, stories, and experiences of individuals across diverse professions. As a historian by trade, I firmly believe that our personal histories shape our present and offer valuable insights into our paths ahead. With that being said, let's get into it. On this episode of Into the Unknown, I am joined with a very special guest, Grace Redman. How you doing today, Grace?
Oh, I'm great, Jeremy. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
I always like to kick off the show and kind of talk about the importance of networking. How did I
Mm.
find you?
Well, you found me through Marcus Ogden. So we both know Marcus. He's amazing. We've both been guests on his show. He's an amazing networker.
He really is. I appreciate everything Marcus does, always connecting. And I think
Yes.
so much of that is just getting people together that have similar outlooks, similar views, and just being able to find ways to collaborate.
Yes, yes, and so he's been great, and actually, I took a chance and I reached out to him last year and asked him, "Hey, I'd love to come on your podcast." I didn't expect to hear back from him, and I did, so and then from there is just, our relationship has, he's an amazing person, he's very helpful and generous with his time.
I couldn't agree more. I could speak, good about Marcus all day. It's
Yeah.
so great when people like that. You sometimes feel like they're almost too busy for the world, and then all you have to do is ask. And I think so much of that is intent too.
Totally, and I've learned because I have sometimes I don't wanna ask because you don't wanna bother someone, however, I'm learning that if you don't ask, you don't know, and so that's what my intention for this year is just to ask, you never know.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's so much. My dad, who also is on episode 70 of my podcast, he always likes to remind me of that. He's always told me the worst someone can say is no, and so you never know if you don't ask.
That's true, and I think for me, because I'm such a giver, I wanna always make sure, okay, like, if I'm asking, like, how can I give? And sometimes I'm also learning, like, it's okay to also, you know, to ask just from a place of from the heart because people want to be able to help you. And I remember one time my therapist, she said, Grace, you're not allowing the people the privilege to give, like it's a gift for them to give, so can you please just allow them to give and be open to receive.
Grace, I appreciate you mentioning that. I think that is a thing with people who do give and people who put their time into everything. It's sometimes it's okay to ask for a favor
Yes,
or an opportunity.
for sure. So I am still working on that.
So I also like to kick off the show and talk about your origin story. Think comic book issue number one. Who's Grace?
Who is Grace? Well, when I was 19 years old, I found myself in therapy. Like I took myself there in secret. I didn't tell anyone. And when I had the same therapist on and off for 25 years. And 10 years ago, when I reached out to her and I let her know, like, I'm starting the coaching side of the business, she said to me, I just need to be transparent with you. I never thought that you would make it. And I hope you're not upset. And I said, no, I'm not upset at all. It speaks to the resilience of us as humans. So at the age of 19, she felt there was no hope. However, I have been able to, raise my family. I'm one of the top women owned businesses where we live. I've overcome, a lot of adversity. I started a coaching business. So I've done the work and I've overcome adversity where those adversities may have taken someone else out. I mean, again, she thought I wouldn't make it, but here I am, you know, many, many years later, just healthy and, successful. And that's just, I'm very proud of that. That's something I'm very proud of.
Grace, what makes you think that you were able to overcome that adversity when even your therapist thought maybe she won't make it?
Yeah. She was like, I didn't think you'd make it. I didn't think there was any hope for you. I believe, I mean, if I can be transparent, that I always felt that source, that the power that was greater than me, that continued to push me forward. And I really had conviction in the vision I had for myself. And so I was determined to create the type of life that I wanted and that I saw in my mind. And so that's why I didn't let anything hold me back. Because I've had people tell me, well, you're not going to make it in the business that I started. You're not. When I got married, they told me my relationship with my husband wouldn't last. So I've been told over and over that the ventures that I'm interested in partaking in wouldn't make it. And I never listened to anyone else because I had a vision for myself, and that vision was more powerful than what anyone could tell me.
Grace, you touched on something really important, that vision. I think it's tough to describe with people who don't have a vision. I think it's one of those things that it's tough to describe to people when you just see it. Maybe you see all the puzzle pieces all over, but you don't exactly see how it fits yet.
Yes, and, I'm in a new adventure of my life, and I do see all the puzzle pieces right now. I just don't see how they fit, and, there are moments that I ask myself, like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "You know what? You can see it. You could see I can see it in my mind, and I don't know how it's gonna fit, but it doesn't matter. I still get up and go because 'cause it'll unfold the way it's meant to." That I believe.
What started you on your path to where you are now?
Well, overcoming what I did and being in a place where I felt, depression and anxiety and stress, and then getting to the other side of that, it really made me very passionate about sharing with others. Like, okay, we don't have to live in this prison in our mind. We can feel peace. We can feel confident. We can feel joy. And that's what that's a passion I have, because when we are feeling better and we're doing better, then we are able to give back to our communities, and we really need to elevate the collective. But it's hard for us to elevate the collective if we're stuck in our own, trauma.
Grace, I appreciate you said that. I think it's so important. That prison of your mind can be a very scary place. I won't
Yes.
lie, and it's finding those ways, whether it's through therapy or through other means, to really start to unpack a lot of that. I think a lot of times, as you mentioned, as a giver, you're not always putting your seatbelt on first, or you're putting your oxygen mask on the airplane.
That's right. And, I grew up in a world that conditioned me to believe that I had to take care of everyone else, and I'd come last, because if I didn't take care of everyone else, then I would be selfish. However, we really need to change that narrative. We do need to take care of ourselves first, because how are you going to take care of anyone else if we're not taking care of ourselves? Like, you wouldn't drive your car on empty. Like, if you see your cell phone battery dying, like, you're plugging it in. However, we allow ourselves to go on empty, and that's not healthy.
No, it's not, and I think a lot of times we have to learn whether it's falling all the way to rock bottom, or I think it's those experiences where we realize we can't do it ourselves, or we can't help others without helping ourselves.
Totally. We can't help others without helping ourselves. And then, again, also, we know people that are self-absorbed. There's a difference between, being mindful and taking care of yourself, to be present for yourself, for your family, for your community. And then, the difference between someone who's just completely self-absorbed and selfish. There's a difference. Like you know, and you know yourself sometimes if you're being self-absorbed.
I think
And
that's
own
no.
it.
Go ahead.
Own it. Own it and make a different choice.
Grace, you touched on something really, really important that I appreciate. I think it's knowing yourself too. I think it's one thing to unpack, past traumas, but I think it's another thing to actually kind of know yourself. I know myself so well, it makes me uncomfortable sometimes, whether I'm feeling, whether it's the weather, whether it's like just what I'm about to do. And, sometimes you're like, oh, I know this is probably a bad idea, but I'm going to do it, even though internal me knows it's bad. It's telling me it's bad. It's one of those things where I think knowing yourself is important for the good as well, of course.
Totally. And I mean, we're all human. We're going to make bad decisions. Just own it. And I always say there's no failure, it's only feedback. However, if you keep making the same mistake over and over, that's not a mistake anymore. It's a decision, it's a choice, and just own it. Own it. That's it.
I couldn't agree more. What got you? Excuse me. What business are you working on? What business do you have going?
So, for the last 26 years, I've owned Stansbury Staffing. It is a staffing firm where we've helped local businesses. We staff local businesses with local talent. So I work with candidates who are in between positions or are looking for new positions, and I work with companies, organizations who are looking to hire, employees. And 10 years ago, I started a coaching side of the business where I work with entrepreneurs and professionals and leaders to help them unlock their inner peace and confidence so they can really soar into that next level and really create a life and business that they're excited to wake up to. Because so many of us kind of just wake up dreading the day ahead, and we don't need to. We can really wake up to a life and business that we're excited to get to.
Grace, I appreciate that. I think it's so true because I'm fortunate. I work in, as we talked a little bit earlier, I work in museums. I do my podcasting, but from college into my career, I never really had any of those jobs where I dreaded going to work. I dreaded my 9 to 5. Of course, there's things you always want to change, but
Yes.
growing up, I realized what people I graduated with, how devastating that was to me, to how much some people hated what they do.
Right. It's like you dread, Sunday night comes and you start dreading, oh my gosh, tomorrow's Monday. Then you go in on Monday and you're looking forward to Friday. So we really can live a life and create a business that we love. I've done it and I really speak from experience. Now, was it easy? No. Are things perfect? No. But it's also in the mindset, in the perspective. And when I say we soar, into that, next level, soar is like S is shifting our mindset. O is owning, our part in what's not working. A is acting, taking action, and R is, rising to that next level. So we are responsible for, the lives that we live. And sometimes we have to own like what's our part and make a shift to improve things, to close the gap.
Grace, I appreciate that. I think it's so important to be able to close those gaps, but also, as you mentioned, and I always tell people, like, it's not always sunshine and rainbows. It just doesn't
No.
exist. But there's so many things you can take and build to really create what you want out of life.
Yes, you can. And despite your circumstances, I know people who have, come to this country, the United States, in the back of a Volkswagen or had to, swim on a raft. And then you see, despite their circumstances, like they create amazing lives, amazing businesses, amazing careers. And so when I have someone, giving me excuses, I'm like, hey, I know people who have overcome insane circumstances. So, again, and I want to be, what's the word? Like, it is harder when we come from a different place to create a life, that we love. So I want to be mindful of that. However, if we're living here in the United States of America, we have so many resources available to us. Really, what is your excuse?
Grace, I appreciate that so much. I was adopted. I was born in Guatemala. I was adopted and I moved to Wisconsin, have amazing parents. But I think so much the history background and that wanting to learn more and more. And I think it gave me such a added, I call it the attitude of gratitude from like a
Yes.
really young age of knowing how fortunate I was. And of course, don't get me wrong, I complain about stuff, but
We're
as
human.
there's people who have it worse than I do, and
Yes.
I'm fortunate, and I always try to remind myself that, even though there are moments and times, but in general, net, I think life's pretty good.
Amen. Honest, I feel the same way. As a Palestinian American, I've had to witness just the atrocities, going on over the last year and a half. And I feel like regardless of whatever I'm experiencing or going through, I'm human. I'm gonna have my challenges. However, then I'm reminded like I have food and water and home and shelter. So each day that I wake up, I'm grateful for that.
So, Grace, I know everyone's path, everyone's journey. You make a decision not knowing the outcome. You can go east, you can go west. Can you give me a time where you made a decision, and just went for it?
Oh, well, you know, I've had the coaching business for 10 years. I've had the staffing business for 26 years. So a lot of what I've done is speaking to people one on one, and I've been invited to speak in groups. So last year, I was invited to speak at one of the top, real estate firms, and after I was done, one of my colleagues and friend was like, "You really should do professional speaking." I'm like, "Are you insane? It took me 3 years to get comfortable to do a Facebook Live, and you're telling me to go be a, professional speaker." Well, I thought about it, and then there was just an intuition inside of me, and so I went for it, and I signed up for a program for professional speakers, and it's gonna be a year in July, and it's been an incredible journey. If you told me that was something that I was gonna do, I'd be like, "Yeah, no, that's never happening." So I pulled the trigger and I went for it, something I never anticipated doing.
Grace, that's incredible. I think it's so amazing when you start to find those things, as we've talked about, finding more things about yourself, things you didn't think you would ever be able to possibly do, but instead you kind of just go for it. And I think the more and more you just go for it, as we talked about, I think it gets a little less scarier. I always compare it to that peak of a roller coaster. Right before you go down, you feel in the pit of your stomach, this is the scariest thing I've ever done. But once you start doing more and more of that, you know it's going to come. You're going to still have that same pit in your stomach, but it's kind of, for me, it excites me a little bit more.
No, you're totally right. It's like the more reps you get, the easier it gets, and I'm feeling that, like, it gets easier, it becomes like osmosis, you just embody it and you own it. So I'm looking forward to what's ahead, and I know, I'm the type of person, like, I already wanna get there, but it's about the journey. Because once you get there, you're like, "Okay, well, what next?" So now I'm learning to embrace the journey.
Grace, you touched a nerve right there. I couldn't agree more. I think I've learned over time. For me, it's so much about the process. It's so much about the journey. I was fortunate, as we talked about a little earlier, to work at the College Football Hall of Fame. I worked at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and I remember one of my first days on the job. It was a job I realized that I could do this every day until I retire.
Mm,
And for me, I think it scared me more than anything because I kind of set that goal. It was a very rare goal, very difficult goal, but it took me 3, 4, 5 years moving all over the country to get that goal. And I got
mm.
it. And I guess I felt, I wouldn't say disappointed, but oh, that was it. And eventually after that wore off, it kind of excited me on to see what was next and what was out there.
I love that story, and I'm gonna share a story with you very similar. When I was 30 years old, I had my vision, I set all of these goals, and, I was going to retire when I was 50 something, and I'm 54, and I achieved all of the goals that I set out to, and then I was like, "Oh, oh, what now?" Like, I didn't think of and I'm like, "I don't wanna retire, like, I'm still young, I still have life left in me." And so that's what made me realize, like, "Oh my gosh, it's not about reaching, the goal, it's about, the journey to get there." And at this point from here to for the next 25 years, I'm really making an effort to yes, I have a vision, but I'm making an effort to just enjoy the process because I think I missed it, you know, the last 25 years. Like I missed enjoying the process. And then when I got there, I'm like, oh my God, I accomplished everything I wanted. And then I just felt like you said, I just felt like a drop.
And no, Grace, I appreciate that. And for me, it was devastating. I won't lie. I was like, I worked so hard. I did all this. I moved here, lived there, lived in, I moved to Akron, Ohio at one point, and I just had my car and like my sleeping bag. And I found the guy on Craigslist. He was a great roommate. But it was one of those things where you kind of look back and you have all these moments, and they're great moments. And I'm like, and I got it. And now what am I gonna do? And I'm supposed to do this forever now, and everyone be cool. It would have been one of those things where you can just kind of ride off into the sunset. And I think for me, it motivated me to keep exploring who I was, but also kind of what else was out there.
Amen to that. And that's where I'm at now, just pushing the envelope and, elevating my business and constantly working on myself. And now for me, it's about service and my family's legacy, and how can, I be of service, and how can I be available for the people that need me. And it's a beautiful place to be. And it is scary at times, but and I'd say, if I came this far and I overcame what I did, I trust God, and I know that whatever is from here to there is going to work out.
Amen to that, Grace. Title of the podcast: Into the Unknown. What are you working on right now? What do you have going for your business and everything you're doing?
Well, I'm really excited. The last 10 years, my coaching practice has been just word of mouth. So just people in the community who knew I was coaching would just, come over or reach out to me. But now I'm excited to open up my coaching practice to the public. So that's really exciting. So I'm available for coaching. And also I'm working on, my keynote and getting out there doing some professional speaking. I'm going to be in Arizona in June doing a speaking engagement for Talent Sphere, which is talent acquisition professionals. So it's exciting and it's scary because, speaking professionally is new to me, and opening up my coaching business to the public is new. So I'm excited to see what's ahead.
That really is exciting. I think so much of it is getting, as we talked about earlier, those reps, that experience. I joke because before the museum career, I was an educator, I was a teacher. And I tell people, you get in front of a room of middle schoolers, you can talk to anyone after that.
Right? That's true. I love it. I love it.
If people want to learn more about your coaching, where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, they can find me at Grace Redman, GraceRedman. Just Google me, and my social media will come up. Or you can go to my website, www.graceredman.com. Join my newsletter. You could also find my podcast, Real Talk at Grace Redman. So looking forward to connecting with you.
Well, Grace, I want to say thank you again for taking the time to talk with me. It was really great to hear your story.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me, Jeremy. I appreciate you and all that you do.
We'll talk soon.
All right, dear. Thank you.
That was another fun episode of Into the Unknown. I truly appreciate you taking the time to listen. And if it provides you any value or entertainment, I would love if you shared it with others, liked, subscribed, and really just help the podcast grow. Again, tell a friend, tell a foe, just anyone who might enjoy hearing some stories of people's own journeys and what got them to where they are today. Till next time.